Good afternoon, everyone. If there's an empty chair next to you that you're not saving for someone, would you raise your hand so that someone can come? We've got some up here, so someone can come and sit. We're bringing out, I don't know if we brought them all out, but we were bringing out some additional chairs for the back. I know it's going to be close quarters. I have a few housekeeping things to attend to before we begin the service. The first is that here at First Existentialist, we do require that inside the building that you always have on a mask unless you are up here on the stage speaking. And by having on your mask, it means wearing it over your nose and your mouth, please. The last thing Robert Stewart would want is for this to become a super spreader event. So please do that. Also, there is a restroom right outside of these two double doors. There are a couple of chairs up here if anybody is still looking for a place to sit. We have a restroom downstairs that's in this far corner for anyone who's going down there. That will also be accessible during the reception after the service, and you can access that through a door on the outside. Please be sure and turn off your telephones. And any other electronic devices that you might have? Oh. And there are a couple of them here up front. Another thing is we have hand sanitizer at different places around in the room. Is there anybody who would like? If I could borrow a program. I'll give it right back. All right, I'd like to welcome you to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. My name is Reverend Marshall Mitchell. I am the fellowship minister here at First Existentialist, and Robert was one of our longtime members who was part of our foundation. First Existentialist is a philosophically based spiritual community founded on existentialist and feminist principles and dedicated to human reparation. We are here today to remember, to honor, and to celebrate the life of Robert Earl Stewart, Jr. He left us much too soon. We're saddened by our loss, but having had Robert in our lives has been a joy that we can always celebrate. One of the things about Robert, and most of you know this, is he loved to sing. So we have picked several songs from our songbook that we're going to sing as a congregation. And we have wonderful musicians here today that are going to play for us. We have Dean Heinrich, Andy Weisskopf, Craig Refuge, and Rick King have all graciously agreed to play for us today. So the songs are that you will find the songs as an insert in your program, and you can stand as you're willing and able to join in. I would like to say one other thing is that if we ran our programs, so if you are a family unit, if you would only keep one program so that others can have a program afterwards, and if there's anyone that we can have some more printed at a later date, for anyone who would like to let us know, you can find us on the web. Our first song is going to be Amazing Grace. Please stand as you're willing.
Say
Today is a day of sadness, but it is also a day to rejoice because we had the privilege and the joy to have known Robert Earl Stewart. He was one of a kind. Robert was born and raised in Alabama. His father died when he was only 8, which became a milestone in his life, but he was very fortunate because he had a wonderful mother and grandmother, strong, independent, loving women. He grew up with their nurturing and became the man that we know. He had a love of nature. He loved sports. He loved hiking, camping. He was a Eagle Scout in the Boy Scouts. Not hard to believe that, is it? He had a curiosity that seemed unbounded, and it spurred him to learn about anything and everything, and to explore, to read books, to talk with people in exchanges with people that he didn't agree with, but because he wanted to learn. From the strong foundation that Robert had, he evolved into the man who could talk about any subject, who knew the value of working hard at anything he put his mind to. He was open. He was authentic in a way that very few of us are. He was authentic in his relationships. He co-created a loving family with his wife, Carol. He loved that family. He talked about them all the time. If he wasn't here on a Sunday, I was pretty well assured he was probably in Alabama visiting his mother, who we talked about with some of the most glowing expressions on his face that I've ever seen in a man. He loved Will. He was so pleased when Will chose Elizabeth to be his wife and life partner. And if you've had any contact with Robert in the last 5 months, you know that he could not stop talking about his granddaughter, baby Grace. There were times when I thought he might pop a button on her shirt because he was so proud of Will and Elizabeth and having that little grandbaby. I'm so grateful that he had the opportunity to spend time with her. I'm sad that she won't have the opportunity to experience knowing Robert firsthand, but I'm sure that she will learn about Robert as she grows up. Robert and Carol actually met here at First Existentialist, as I understand it. I hope that's not you. Please, turn your cell phones off. They met here at First Existentialist and were married by our founding minister, Reverend Lanier Clance. Will grew up, actually, coming here with Robert on Sundays, running around this beautiful building that we are so fortunate to have. Robert was and is a part of our foundation. His roots in this congregation are deep, and everywhere you look, if you ask about almost anything in this space or in our yard, you can be assured that Robert Stewart had a hand in it. He was always the first person to volunteer for anything. He loved to sing and was a member of our choir whenever we had one. And it was great to hear him in the back. He always stayed in the back, and you could hear his voice carry when we were singing. He stayed in the back. That's because when you came through those doors, you were going to get the biggest bear hug you have ever had in your life. Robert knew how to hug. He knew how to hug in a way that really made you feel embraced with love and caring.
Amen.
Everyone who knew Robert, just by knowing him, we received a gift. He was smart, kind, gentle, caring, laughing, impish. He made our lives, he made us better just by his presence. It's hard to imagine his not being here, but I know that he would want us to carry on the legacy that he forged, the legacy of openness, authenticity, curiosity, and love. Let it be so. We now have special music by a friend of Robert's from many, many years, Watley, Finland. So, Watley, would you please introduce your song for us?
My name is Watley Feldman, and I was an original member of this church, and I just consider Robert a brother of mine. He and Bill Laney and I met as part of a men's group for over 40 years. Back from the 70s when the men's movement was a thing. And then we're trying to learn how to connect with each other. And I had so many of those incredible bear hugs. I can't tell you how much that affected me. We've been meeting for over 40 years, and our last meeting was a few months ago to celebrate his becoming a grandfather. We talked during these groups sometimes. It's been a while since I've been here. Talked about me coming back and singing a song that I'd written, or some songs that I'd written in the past. And this is the song that I would have come back and probably played. And it's called I Have a Place. But I think from now on, after today, it will be called Robert's Song. because it not only talks about this congregation, and it's something that we all need, but I think it says a lot about Robert and the person he was. There's many a road to travel, many a stone to turn, many a dream to unravel, many a lesson to learn. When you leave the comfort, black and white, seeking your own true light. I have a place I can feel my feelings. I have a place I can sing my song, where it's safe to be real in my dealings. That's where I belong. I have a place I can feel my feelings when the world starts to get absurd, where I can be real in my dealings, a place I can be. The search for truth can be so elusive, but it's a calling I can't avoid. In a world that can be so abusive, it's hard not to get paranoid. But I have a place I can feel my feelings. I have a place I can sing my song, where it's safe to be real in my dealings. That's where I belong. Now there's a vision we've celebrated of a world unfabricated, and we've talked and we've worked and we've waited. But in the meantime, I have a place I can feel my feelings. I have a place I can sing my song, where it's safe to be real in my dealings. That's where I belong. I've had to fight so many illusions. I've watched many of them disappear. I've had to find my own solutions. At times I've wondered, is there anyone here? I need a place to rest when I'm weary. I need a place my soul can run free. I've come a long, long way to discover a place where I can be me. And I have a place I can feel my feelings. I have a place I can sing my song, where it's safe to be real in my dealings. That's where I belong. That's where I belong. That's where I belong.
I'd like to have an opportunity to hear from family members. Y'all could either use this microphone down here, or you could come up on stage, whichever you're more comfortable with.
could you? What a blessing. What a blessing to be. What a blessing your presence is. We need you so much because our hearts are broken. They're slipped. I know that you love them too. You will be here. And you will. Thank you. The first message I heard after I got the message of Robert's death, the young man said to me, he was the best man I've ever met. And not very long following that, another person called and he said, you know, he was the kindest person I've ever met. Another called and said, he's the smartest. And I thought, oh my. Oh my. And I thought, yes, he was good. He was kind. He was smart. And oh, happy was he. He knew the sound of laughter. And anyone who knew him knew he was a happy, happy person. I am so honored. I am so blessed to have been his mother. The joy that he has given me, you can never say enough words. I can never say enough words today to thank you for your presence here. We needed you very, very bad. Please know that the time and effort that you took to make this trip, to come here, to celebrate Robert's life, will bless us as long as we do. Thank you for your presence here. Thank you for your love. Robert loved this little church. He loved people, and people loved him. He is that of this. Yes. Thank each one. Thank you more than I can ever tell you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all for being here today. know that each of you meant something important to my dad, and the fact that you were here would put a wide smile across his face. My dad meant many things to me over the years. When I was young, he was a source of all knowledge. Any question I had, he always seemed to know the answer. We often said to look it up myself so that I could learn how to learn, so that I could create that basic knowledge for myself. He enforced a strict ethical code, but it was less prescriptive of certain actions and more a framework for making decisions based on who I wanted to be. It was not always easy for a first grader. But I know that it shaped who I am now more deeply than any list of do's and don'ts ever could have. As I matured as a person and he matured as a father, our relationship shifted. By the time I was in high school, he was demanding, stringent in his expectations, and tended to even be a bit didactic. He was also intensely supportive, loving, affectionate, and he never let me doubt that the reason he pushed was because he believed in me. In instances where I had fallen short of expectations, but he knew that I put forth full effort, he was always just as proud as if I had achieved my goal. He always allowed me to dictate the course of my life, but required that I push myself to achieve in whatever endeavor I chose to undertake. Without his guidance and his push, I think that I would not have done many of the things which have brought me the most joy in my life. The next phase of our relationship began while I was in college. But he still took delight in checking every grade that was posted on the online portal. He recognized that the time had come that I was to be treated as an adult. Where the parenting style before had been something akin to the coach who offers constant guidance and correction to make sure that his players are as prepared as possible come game time, the new relationship was more a friend who was invested in my success and wanted to help however he could, but recognized that it was now my responsibility to succeed at it. The upshot is that we were able to have a friendship at this point, which was not viable in the previous iteration of our relationship. I loved getting to know him as a friend, as a peer. I learned more about what gave him tick, which deepened the love that I had for him, and created a new perspective on how he moved through this world. We shared so many interests that I could talk with him for hours without thinking about it. The conversations were fluid, far-reaching, and some of the most rewarding memories of my life. I had been told that I could be a bit argumentative. I know that it's probably true. I think that what can be argumentative in my personality came with many conversations with my dad over the years, where we talked things over, going back and forth, pulling things apart to find out whether what our thinking made sense and trying to find the truth. I always loved the feeling of bouncing ideas back and forth, trying to figure it all out, and I will always miss that. More than anything, he was a loving and supportive father. His dedication was such that there was almost nothing he wouldn't do to help me. I think he chaperoned more field trips than any other dad I knew. He stepped in to help lead my Cub Scout troop when there was no one else to, despite not having the first idea what he was doing. He traveled a lot for work, but made every effort to come to every game, for every team I ever played on, but I actually saw the field before it. He came on nearly every camping trip my Boy Scout troop took, which meant sleeping on the ground once a month for years. Despite the fact that I'm up here speaking, the reality is that there are no words which can come close to describing what a wonderful father, exemplary man my dad was. I knew him as my father, but I was not alone in the loving support he provided to me. His dedication and patience were boundless. He helped out wherever he could and talked with people whenever he got the chance. He had a gregarious personality and a true love for his fellow man. Finally, I want to talk about my daughter Grace and my dad. I love this until the end. Because I don't know whether I'm going to get through it, but I'm going to try. My only child so far was born on February 2nd this year. Grace Lee Stewart came into this world, and the gravity of my dad's world shifted. He and my mom wanted to come meet her as soon as they could. And I don't remember my dad ever being as ecstatic and joyful as he was with her. I'm still dealing with my dad being gone, but for myself, I feel that my dad had already given me everything. For Grace, it was just beginning. All of the things I've described before, I expected Grace to get from them too. I'll be a bit softer around the edges since he gets to be the grandpa. The grandparents' job is to spoil the grandkids. Instead, she got only a few months with him. I am more grateful than ever that he and my mom came down as often as they did, and Grace loved her grandpa. I still can't quite believe that he won't be there to watch her take her first steps, say her first words, and grow up. Still, I know that he will live on as a presence in our lives and in our hearts. Grace will know him through us. To badly misquote Harry Potter, which she loved, he will not truly be gone from this world until there are none here who are loyal to him. He will be a constant presence in our family and in the lives of all of us here who remember him. Thank you all for being here and for the love and kindness you showed to my father. We will all miss him, but I hope that he lives on in all of us.
Those of you who know me might have winced when you saw me walk up. I'm Anita, my mom's sister. And had the privilege of him being one of my first really firm memories in my life. Mother and Daddy brought him home from the hospital, a couple of days old, and they had bought me a little red stuffed leather rocker, a little 4-year-old size rocker, and they put him in my arms. And when I first met Grace, just a few days after Rob was gone, I went barreling down a time tunnel when Will put her in my arms. I've held a lot of babies over the years, but I have never, until Grace, held one who felt like my little brother Robert. Very strong, very dense. Carol used to talk about cats that could lower their center of gravity and let her so heavy. Grace had in my arms that day. I know Will must have thought I was losing my mind. I probably had all kinds of expressions going across my face. She felt so much like Robert did. As a little bitty kid, I don't ever remember being afraid to hold him. He didn't feel fragile. You know babies are, and Lord knows mom and dad can feel that. But he just was so physically present from the moment he was born. Here was my little mama, this big, with a little newborn that was half her size. And here I was, a little 4-year-old. Mother said, now this is how I know that they must have really drilled into me, be careful, is Mother said I used to lecture adults when I thought they weren't being gentle enough. So it's just amazing to be here, see little Grace over here. A
makes me a little sad to go back to one part of what Mother asked me to do. She asked if I would read this poem on her behalf. When tomorrow starts without me. When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not here to see if the sun should rise and find your eyes are filled with tears for me. I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today, while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me, as much as I love you, and each time that you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand. An angel came and called my name and took me by the hand and said my place was ready in heaven far above, and that I'd have to leave behind all those I dearly love. But when I walked through heaven's gate, I felt so much at home. When God looked down and smiled at me from his great golden throne, he said, "This is eternity and all I promised you. Today your life on earth is past, but here it starts anew. I promise no tomorrow, for today will always last. And since each day is the same way here, there's no longing for the past. So when tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart. For every time you think of me, I'm right there in your heart." Are you there? The same week my precious little brother died. That was the week that those amazing images started coming in from a billion light years away. Hard to even imagine. And I kept trying to shift my focus because being here wasn't feeling very happy, and I kept thinking, okay, think cosmically, but I couldn't get it. This morning, I was standing in the shower, just letting hot water pour over me, and I got to thinking, if I could send a message back a billion light years, what would I say about this amazing human being that we're in a process of saying goodbye to here? There couldn't be a better example of what a human being is and could and can be. Not that he was perfect, and I really don't want to try to get him all sanctified and deified up. Because the quirky parts and the challenging parts were wonderful. They weren't always easy in the moment, but they were wonderful. So we could do worse if we were speaking to people a billion light years from here than to say, this is what man on earth was. Doesn't mean I wasn't thinking about all these other things. The good, the bad, and the weird. But I think the fact that he can and has such an amazing community of such different people shows in many ways how many facets he had, because probably each one of you thinks you have the real Robert, and you do. You do. It was just, there were so many sides of the real Robert. He, in many ways, was terrified when Will was born. Will had Will had a hard start in life. He was not super well initially, and there were some scary things there, but mostly, along with all that Rob and Carol were so concerned about, Robert was terrified that he might not live long enough to be the father he needed to be for Will. Our own father died when he was 37 years old. He and Mom were both 37. He died just as suddenly as Robert was taken from us. And Rob at 8 and I at 12 we were reeling. And Rob was really concerned. We both had age 37 in our mind as something that was a little bit scary. It was a threshold. And each day after that we lived each year, it was like, made it another. Because we didn't grow up like many children do, thinking it's all endless. We learned pretty fast. When our daddy died, and then 5 months later our granddaddy died, both unexpected. But he lived as deeply and as much as he could. He told me to talk about this a couple of times, not often. It was there in the background. But he talked about how he wanted to make sure at any day that if he left, that Will would have gotten what he needed. And I think I know it drove him to push, to do things that were at some cost to himself, with the way that he was pretty type A in a lot of our really functional, get a lot done, but it can also be really hard on the person who's doing it. So at any given point in time, Rob was living about 4 different lives. His father life, his husband life, his family, rest of family life. But he did it. He found the energy. He did it, and he kept himself healthy enough to see Will through to a milestone. And we're all heartbroken that Will Gracie won't get to know him. But it was such an amazing thing to have this little baby in my arms and felt just like my 4-year-old memory of what Robert felt like. So if the people out there 1,000,000 light years from here are listening, there are about 1 million stories, a lot of them here. Write them down, because I wasn't even sure if I would have anything to say today when I'm asking to speak. But we could do a whole lot worse as a human race here on this planet than to have a picture of Robert Stewart, a million writers from here say, this is a good thing. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for loving him. Thank you all for being parts of my life. Going back, I guess there are only 3 of us here who knew Robert since he was born. Our cousin Steve and Mother. And I was 2 days later. Steve was probably a couple of weeks later. But it's an awesome, amazing thing. They've been almost 70 years. And Rob was a really happy baby. If you picture Rob with his big booming laugh and his kind of wallaby, he had a lot of that as a little baby. So you can just picture what a literal and metaphorical handful he was. Heartbroken and grateful. And love to each and every one.
And I'm deeply touched to see all of you here at this memorial service and to feel the esteem and love that so many members of this congregation have for Robert. Beginning with our first meeting in May of 1982 here in this sanctuary, Robert and I had a strong connection, one that grew over many years. Although our life together ended much too soon, I feel so fortunate and grateful to have spent 40 years with Robert. Our loving partnership made our life together enjoyable and fulfilling. I miss Robert to the core of my being. Many times we said to each other that we completed each other, supporting the other to be their own person was a significant basis of our life adventure. Robert's compassion, joy, intelligence, and humor will always be in the memories of the many people he connected with. His loving relationship with Will and Will's precious family brought joy to all of us. I miss Robert terribly, and it's comforting to know so many people were touched by Robert's wonderfully kind and generous spirit. Life can't be taken for granted. Thank you all, each of you, for coming today, and a very special thank you to the members and friends of this congregation, as well as our family and dear friends who have made possible today's celebration of Robert. Thank you.
We're going to have a congregational song, one of Robert's favorites, called Walk in the Light. The music is in your insert and in your willing and able. We're singing Walk in the Light.
There's a light that was shining when the world began, and a light that is shining in the heart of a man. There's a light that is shining in the Turk and the Jew, and a light that is shining, friend, in me and in you. Walk in the light wherever you may be. Walk in the light wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. With the book and the steeple, with the bell and the key, they will bind it forever, but they can't set me. For the book it will perish and the steeple will fall, but the light will be shining at the end of it all. Walk in the light wherever you may be. Walk in the light wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. Will you swear on the Bible I will not, said he, for the truth is as holy as the book to me. If we give you a pistol, will you fight for the Lord? You can't kill the devil with a gun or a sword. Walk in the light wherever you may be. Walk in the light wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. I drowned in the night, till I came through the darkness to the ocean of light. And the light is forever, and the light will be free, and we'll walk in the glory of the light, said he. Walk in the light wherever you may be. Walk in the light wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy, shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox.
I believe that I have said, and that the family has said, pretty much a description of Robert that we will all carry in our hearts. He was one of the finest men that I ever knew, without a doubt.
Yeah.
He will be missed beyond measure. But the blessings that he gave us just by being a part of our lives is innumerable.
Yeah.
And what he would want, I firmly believe, is that we would take that lessons that he grew up with a very strong Christian ethic. He came into this congregation and expanded into existential and feminist principles. He put those things together and created this incredible man who walked in this world in a way that we, I think, should all want to follow. So, that is what I would like to, from my remembrance, is to leave you with that idea, is that if you loved and cared about Robert, then please, as you go forth in every aspect of your life, and I've got a t-shirt, you've got the saying that says, what would Jesus do? I have a t-shirt that says, what would Ruth Bader Ginsburg do? Maybe you could think about, what would Robert do? Let that be your guiding principle. You can't, I don't think you could aspire for anything higher. We're going to have a very brief meditation and time for folks to light candles, if you wish, on the side of the sanctuary. It's not going to be long. I know we all want to try to get outside before it rains. And we still have a little bit more of the program, but I'd like for you to take a few minutes and hold your thoughts in your heart and be here with your brothers and sisters in quiet, and remember Robert. Just a few minutes for those of you who might want to come up to the microphone that's right here to say a few words about Robert. Please, if you would, keep them very brief, because I know that a number of you might want to do that. There's also an opportunity, of course, to share with people after the service during the reception. But please, anyone who would like to come forward and use the microphone to share any thoughts or memories?
in the newsletter, but I just want to talk about it again because it just tells you the kind of person Robert was. A couple of years ago, I got a birthday card from Robert. He didn't always send me birthday cards, but just this year he did. And I'm sure he wasn't looking for a birthday card from me, but he was looking for something else and just saw this card. And it had these baseball theme and these little cut-out baseball people and little spear things you throw around the bases. It was just like really silly and cute. And I'm sure that when he saw it, he just thought, oh, Jen loves baseball. So he just got it from me, and it was just so much fun. And this past Christmas, I was feeling a little depressed. And Robert called me, and then he sent me a subscription to Reader's Digest. Because he told me that, yeah, it was a little silly, but that it had good stories, and he read it before he went to bed at night, and it always made him feel better. That's the kind of person he was, because he just thought about every one of us as an individual. This is what Jenna, I'm Jenna, by the way. When I walk into this place now, it's kind of like I see an empty space, like a black hole where Robert would be standing. He was the first person to greet me the first time I walked in here, and he's just meant everything to me. And I just told you the kind of friend he was. And when I first started in the newsletter, he came over and he set up my printer for me because I'm so tech stupid. And he just took care of everything for me and showed me how to use it, showed me how to change the printer. I mean, just always thinking of the people. And I remember, this is all I'm going to say, is when he got up and announced that he was going to be grandpa. Oh my God, the pride when he stood there and said, my son Bill and his wife are going to have a baby. And, well, of course, that was it. From there on out, that's all he could talk about. And he sent me several pictures of little Gracie. And anyway, I just want to aspire to be the kind of person that Robert was. I always did used to say, WWRD. I used to say that to myself, because it's true. He was good and kind and the kind of person I want to be.
Robert reminded me of the great author, Leo, who told everybody about hugs. He was the very first person who hugged me when I came here at First E. And he continued to hug me from afar. I was being treated in Toronto for cancer. And I was away. And I thought about all the times being here and working with Robert on different events. And I wrote something for the family. Robert the Gentle Giant. Robert soared in height, esteem, and life. He was the shining life expressing love, hope, and light in all he touched. Robert touched hearts far and wide. He welcomed me, a stranger from Canada, with a hug, smile, and open arms at my first time attending First E. Over the years, Robert became the anchor of First E, an ambassador of love. He gently held me when I learned of the death of my mom. He danced, sang, and shone at many events. Robert was the first volunteer, founder, and friend. Robert Earl Stewart, Jr., forever in our hearts.
I'm Steve Campbell. I'm, as Leah said, one of 3 people here who probably knew Robert more or less from birth. And I think we were probably as close as you could get to brothers growing up. And, except because we never fought. And I thought, who would fight with Robert? And anyway, and I knew his father. And his father, I think, was the source of Robert's joy and love of fun. Then his father went, and he was left basically with a whole bunch of women. And, we were both afflicted with an older sister. But over time, I got to know Robert as sort of triumphing over his loss. He was certainly a force to be reckoned with. He was an image to be followed. And I think the 2 words that I think sort of symbolize Robert are indomitable spirit. And I think he always will be. Thank you very much.
I'm Dave Hayward. I'm the coordinator of Touching Up Our Roots, which is Georgia's LGBTQ story project. So I wrote this last night to share with you all. I only know Robert through our occasional interface with First E and with Touching Up Our Roots. At the same time, Robert is such a light in being the epitome of an ally. When we first connected, I was struck by his warmth and welcome, and I was grateful I did not have to crank out our elevator pitch. We're touching up our roots. Robert was already on board and immediately appreciated the value of LGBTQ folks and our stories and our contributions. How refreshing and relaxing. Robert was eager for Roots to align with First E and to share whatever we wanted. The value of LGBT rights and freedoms is without question to him, as is the value of individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. For me, I always think of Robert in the Q category as a quiet but ardent ally and an honorary member of our alphabet family. I appreciate being able to publish a 50-year summary last year for First E, and then the guest for the Zoom call for the 50th anniversary of Pride in October 2021. Again, Robert was in the forefront as a cheerleader and proponent and heavy-duty peanut gallery fan. And kudos to him and your congregation. It is gratifying to essay this work, and being an activist can be akin to being condemned. But people like Robert make it bearable and doable.
My name's Phil Brassel, and Robert came into our lives, our family's life, probably 16, 17 years ago when my son Tate and Will played football together, and got to know Robert through pheasant hunting trips and quail hunting trips. And I'll say, what I want to remember about Robert, what I think about with Robert, is what a great listener he was. And I think about parties I was at where there was all kinds of noise going on, and I'm telling him some inane story, and Robert is listening, and just interested in what I had to say. And if one thing I want to take of the many things that have been said about Robert, which are all very true, and everybody knows that, is I want to try to be a good listener like Robert.
My name is Carla, and when I was coming here a lot before I was stuck in transportation, I
being here. I used to sit behind Robert during meditation, kind of off to the left behind him. And I always watched him meditate because I knew he was magic. And one day, and one day, as he was sitting there, he had this particular way he held his fingers, and light exploded out of his fingers. Actually, the light came in, hit his fingers, and exploded. Just proof how magical he is.
My name is David Murphy. As everybody has said today, if you looked in the dictionary and you looked at the word friend, Robert's name would be under that. I have known him for almost 50 years, and he's been my best friend. We've gone through a lot of things together, good times and fun times, and I've watched Will grow up. And Nell is my second mother. I love Robert very much, and I will miss him. One thing I can say is that we always call each other brother. Since I'm a little bit older than him, I was his big brother, and he was my little brother. We always addressed each other that way. But in reality, in stature, he was bigger. His personality, his intelligence, his compassion for life and people was something that I looked up to all my life. He has imprinted in all our hearts and minds and souls that love, that hug, that personality. And I can say that in all my life, if I ever needed a friend for anything, he was always there for me. Always. So when we get to the next life, I expect him to be standing there in the welcoming committee to give us all a big hug, a smile, and that gigantic laugh of his.
Robert's the only person I've ever heard of that is actually famous for his hugs. And I am one of those people that do not attend every week, but if ever I was down or depressed, I would come to church because I know Robert would be at the front door for a hug. And I have, just for the family, just so you know, I've been coming here for 20 years. I'm not sure I've ever seen this many people in this room. So that is how much he is loved. And we have our own quirky little habits, so they're hard to break. It's going to be hard to do without them. I want to have warned all tall, follically challenged men in the entryway that people may be reaching for you, because we're used to seeing Robert there, and I just walked out and walked back in, and I'm like, no, it's not. Okay, so be careful. If somebody just hugs you randomly, that's why.
Robert was such a generous person. He was so supportive. You didn't have to believe exactly what he believed, but he would support you anyway. And I always appreciated that. He was willing to pitch in and do so much. But I just wanted to share kind of an image that captures him in my imagination or in my memory. When he would celebrate, we always sing to people here when they celebrate birthdays or anniversaries. And when he was celebrating an anniversary, being married to Carol, Carol would be, I think, communing with nature rather than joining us here. But anyway, Robert would get in front of all of us, and he would ask somebody to come up and stand in her place. And I always appreciated that. It was like he wanted to share the spotlight with somebody. And, you know, and it was no more than just sharing the spotlight, but it was a beautiful kind of thing, and I really appreciated it.
Okay. We have a video presentation of pictures. First team member Patton White has put together pictures that the family and first team members and others have sent in. And so this is going to be pictures of Robert's life. And while we do that, watch that, I'm going to read a poem by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forest, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, see with a clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examine, gnaws at words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nature, now shrunk, wizened, our minds formed and informed by their radiance fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of cold, dark caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. The family wishes to invite you to the reception afterwards, which is out here in the side yard. We have tents and tables set up. There's going to be wonderful food from Elon's, and I understand that Will has handpicked the wine. So please take the opportunity to gather and to celebrate, remember this man that we're here to honor today. I would ask that a couple of things is that one, the family has a table that is going to be right outside as you walk down the steps to the left. There's going to be a table there where the family will be sitting so that you can say something to them. Please try to keep your mask on and not hug unless someone gives you permission to do so. Certainly, when you're out eating, please take your mask off. But, in terms of just be respectful about everyone to make sure that that it's okay before you give someone a hug. And I think that is all the housekeeping that I need to do. I have one final quote, very brief, and then we're going to sing one of Robert's very favorite songs, and I hope that you will think about the words and think about this smiling man here on your program as you sing this and about what it means. The quote is from Winnie the Pooh. Piglet asked, "Are we going to be friends forever?" And Pooh answered, "Even longer." Let it be so. So we're now going to stand and sing our final song. Stand as you're willing and able. The song is Get Together.
Love is but the song we sing. Here's the way we die. You can make a mountain ring or make angels cry. Know that love is on the wing. You do not know why. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Some will come and some will go, and we should surely want to let the Spirit return to us at last. We are like a moment's sunlight sparkling on the grass. key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. Just one key of lost and low, it's there at your command. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. One more time. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Oh, everybody. Hey, everybody. I forgot a couple of things. That's the way it is with existentialists. You never know. One thing is, there's a guest book in the back. If you didn't get a chance to sign it, please do. There's an index card over on the table right outside the kitchen that if you would like to write something to give to the family, you can write it on those index cards, and you can leave them on the table outside or put them in the bowl. And what was the other thing? Something else. Oh, chairs. If you want a chair to sit in, take a chair.